What is the nature of reality? Why are we here? How should we live? What's the point? What is our purpose? What is the meaning of life? Hi, I'm Andrew A.J. Johnson. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be discussing the big questions in life, and hopefully we'll come up with a satisfying-ish answer. Sit back and relax while I go through 3 concepts that claim to hold the answers to life's biggest questions. And I'm going to take a magnifying glass to them and we're going to break them down and talk about it. Let's begin with one concept that tries to answer these questions for us. So let's look at atheism. Atheist will take a hammer, I didn't like the way I said that, but it came out like that. They take a hammer to the hypothesis of God. They'll point out how people have been indoctrinated into a particular belief. They'll point out how it justifies abhorrent crimes, and a lot of it is fundamentalist dogma. And they will show our logical fallacies, inconsistencies, abuses, and flaws in believing. They'll look at meaning and life through a scientific lens. If you're taking atheism seriously, there may be some troublesome spots that come up for you, and you may have a little bit of a difficult time trying to talk your way around it. And I'm going to point out a few of those areas where we may get stuck if we're looking through a scientific lens. Like if you're being a literal scientist and you think you are authority on philosophical issues. The first area you may come into some trouble getting around is ritual. Now, if you are a scientist who sits at home, writes papers in their office, or conducts experiments in your laboratory, it makes sense that you would have an aversion to ritual. It's very difficult to assign ourselves value without connection. Ritual is one of the ways that we connect. I like my scientists to be observers. They don't have to participate. It doesn't mean that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater on ritual. Now, what is ritual? Well, it can be anything from a graduation ceremony to a wedding, going to a music concert, to a funeral, your daily routine, looking over your to-do list, bathing. Lots of things we do are ritual. And now we don't really observe these types of behaviors in animals. In a very crude way, we do observe some religious behavior in animals, but ritual for humans is a conscious choice. Ritual takes us out of our comfort zone. The more natural thing to do would be to just stay in our tribe and not look outside of that, and not do an act of kindness or anything like that. We do ritual because it's something to look forward to. It's something that can make us feel good, and it gives us consistency in our lives. Rituals are a repetitious act with intention, okay? And the second troublesome spot is that intelligence isn't defined so narrowly. Just because you're book smart doesn't mean that you have creative intelligence or emotional intelligence or street smarts. There's other areas that tell us intelligence is much more broad than we think it is. I'm talking poetry, music, literature, painting. It doesn't fit into the way that our education system or science says is what makes us intelligent. On this point, you have to remember tolerance is a virtue. And it's important. That's also what scientific literature says. It's what psychological literature says. Tolerance is a virtue. So you can't be so dismissive of the fact that somebody else processes information differently than you do. You have to remember falsifiability. The fact that a report that came out in 1985 probably has zero relevance to us now. So it could be the case that some of the things we're looking at now, the reports and data that we're seeing now, could be 10 years from now. Somebody's life's work that they're doing right now could mean nothing in years' time. So I don't think we should be so quick to be pointing out what somebody else's behavior or somebody else's belief, somebody else's opinion, and say that that's wrong, and I'm going to close down debate because I think you're stupid because I'm smarter than you are. The last area for an atheist that you're going to have trouble kind of working around is the rejection of what this video is about. You reject meaning and purpose. You say, that's a stupid question. That's like asking, what does the color purple taste like? It's a pointless question. Life is pointless. Life is meaningless. You don't matter. Nobody cares about you. You live, you die, and get on with it. The crux of this is that if you're looking at everything through a scientific lens, through a naturalistic lens, this can lead down a road of nihilism, which can lead to pessimism, which can lead to anarchy. If you're not coming from a psychological perspective, which is fine, I understand that. If you're an evolutionary biologist, I don't expect you to have a psychological perspective. I would challenge educators and teachers, scholars, and speakers today. Stop telling youth that they don't matter and no one cares about them. Yes, you do have an impact. Yes, you do have an effect on the people around you. Yes, your dreams and your ideas are important, they're of value, and you are worthy. Why not start to say stuff like that for a change instead of, yeah, life is pointless and we probably only have 10 years left. This boils down to an issue of consideration more than anything else. You don't think as an adult that young people are not listening? That people who are going through existential crisis aren't listening? They could pay so much time, energy, and money into stuff that you have to say. All you're going to say to them is, your life is useless, pointless, no meaning, things that only you care about, the things you care about. Nobody cares. Makes no difference if you were alive or not. Why are we not talking about hope, inspiration, motivation, uplifting people? Of course our lives have meaning. Why in the hell would any of us go to school and study the works of famous scientists or musicians or anybody that's had an impact on society and culture? Why would we study that if their lives meant nothing? I'm not saying everybody's going to be written in a textbook, but whether or not you're a truck driver or a deodorant tester, it doesn't mean that your life doesn't mean anything. That's a very, very dangerous thing to say and put that out into society and in our culture, that nobody cares. That can be a very free way of thinking. Nobody cares. That thought can be used for good. But as an educator or a teacher, you have to be very careful about the way you're telling people that, and that there's no point and no meaning. You're wondering why we're seeing some of the problems we're seeing in society today? It's from that idea. It's from really smart scientists, really smart people who are telling us, you're all going to die. And we wonder why we're seeing the psychological distress of the 21st century. It's no secret. I think it has a lot to do with technology and a lot to do with this idea that there's nothing. We're all in existential crisis. Let's talk religion. So, it's important to note the distinction between religions and there are many different denominations. I can't sit here and say all religions believe in a God. For the purpose of argument, I'm going to be talking about the religions that operate on the basis of a personal God and operating on feeling and faith rather than evidence. We know that religions will take a metaphorical truth rather literally. You're looking at forgiveness and gratitude, using storytelling to tell you how to move through your life using ancient scripture. Now, if you are a religious person, one of the problems you're going to find is this idea that you're not good enough. Because religions don't have a very good track record of making people feel good about themselves. Because it's about fear, it's about keeping you an obedient person, feeling guilty about sins you've committed. This creates feelings of doubt, anxiety, depression. Actually, this idea, you're not good enough, I would say that religions probably are the root, part of the root cause of mental illness. You can trace back the origins of obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, depressive disorders, melancholia. A lot of these things can be traced back to religion and this feeling, I am not worthy. I think the greatest misinterpreted idea is the idea that you are special. You are special means you don't have to impress anybody in order to be loved. It's very simple. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, because humans aren't perfect. Religions have spread this idea for thousands of years. I've had it. And how LGBTQ people, LGBTQ plus, IA, what have you, plus, have been impacted probably the most out of any minority, in my personal opinion. Well, yes, women and other ethnic minorities have been impacted by religions, but I take issue with the fact that thousands of years ago, some church, I don't know which one it was, decided that you were only to have sex if it was for procreation. And if you did it for pleasure, that's a sin. Do you know why they said that? Because the church needed more followers. They needed to populate. That's like a YouTuber saying, I don't want any of my followers to have sex unless if it's for procreation, so you can teach your kids about my channel and I can grow my channel. That's how ridiculous that is. And that for thousands of years, we carried that around in our hearts. I've had it with that idea. That we're still talking about LGBTQA plus I2 like it's a bad thing. So yeah, I'm angry that that comes from the church, initially. From religions. And here's the second point. What about human suffering? What's worse than everything happens just by random chance is that it was planned. And this is a test. Sometimes God has a plan, sometimes He doesn't have a plan, but you need to keep having faith and you might be rewarded in the process. And yeah, bad things happen to good people. Sometimes we go through difficult times. For no rhyme or reason, it's unexplainable. Where does God fit into that picture? And how we can get caught into this thing of infinite regress of what caused that, what caused that, and what caused that, and I don't really understand why this is happening. The last bit of trouble that looking at the big questions through a religious perspective is this, and I don't even want to really speak it. It doesn't really make sense that you can stand on this moral high ground and act superior when this kind of stuff is going on. It's keeping people down. It's being used for control. To me, there's a cognitive dissonance with it. you know? Just pitting people against each other over their beliefs, if you can believe it. Spirituality. So this is like an add-on to religion or non-belief. This word has no meaning. It's a broad term. Not everybody has to accept your definition of what spirituality means. So it could be things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, tai chi, reiki, creative energy, love and light, social connectedness. It could be, actually it is hard to define what it is. Some spiritual ideas are helpful depending on who you are, while for others it may have no impact at all on their overall mental health and well-being. There are clearly some trouble spots with spirituality as well, and let me point them out. So here's this one right here. It should be up there on your screen. Pseudosciences. So this could be somebody who is profiting off of the placebo effect, taking advantage of the fact that people have magical thinking, they have fantasies, and so you can use things like dowsing rods, sound therapy, light therapy, color therapy, magnetic therapy, things like this that may not be doing anything for you. You could think of a method of divination like gyromancy, which all you're doing basically is just spinning around in a circle until you're dizzy, and all you're going to end up is being dizzy. Second problem you may come into in the spiritual world is self-aggrandizing. And you've probably seen this on YouTube. There are people who claim to be spiritual teachers and the hypocrisy of thinking they have these wonderful powers, obviously placing themselves in this space of, I'm better than everybody else, and I can control everything in my life. You can say, I'm using law of attraction to manifest in my life. Well, there may be other energies at work, and you can't tell me that you can differentiate between all these energies you claim are coming at you. You don't know. And no, you don't have control over everything. I think that's so unfair to say that everything we do has to do with us all the time. It's not all about you. It's not all about me. Third and final issue with spirituality. This. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm saying through a psychological lens, a therapist would argue a spiritual experience may share some features similar to a psychotic episode. So if you're believing that you may harm others by thinking bad thoughts, you think you can read the minds of strangers, you have odd perceptual sensations, hallucinations, those could be symptoms of another issue. Just something to be aware of. And this doesn't mean all people who are spiritual are delusional or crazy. If you are distressed or causing others noticeable discomfort, there's nothing wrong with seeking professional help. We want to be open-minded, but not so much that our brains fall off, fall out of our head. And now, we've arrived at the place where we can stand back. We are permitted to leave this fight, this battle over ideas and beliefs. Leave it for our scholars, who will be battling this out till the end of time. You can have a moment to sit on the fence, be middle of the road for a temporary period, just so you can start to form your own conclusions. Stand back from a place that doesn't have any ism or ist label attached to it. You don't have to get into that. And another thing, and what about that point? I think there's something else to add on that point right there. You don't have to engage in all of that thought activity. Now you could say, well, obviously you're arguing for agnosticism, or an agnostic atheist, or agnostic theist, or whatever. I'm talking about for a temporary period, being able to have perspective and not getting caught up in ideas that aren't even your own. This is the phrase, I don't know and I don't mind. I don't know means you have humility and you're going to find out. I don't mind means you don't have interest in arguing or judging others. I didn't know there was a group of atheists that found meaning and connection in their lives. I didn't know there was an affirming church that believes in the same rights and freedoms that I do. I don't know means you can become comfortable with the unknowns and the uncertainty in life, and that you can tolerate failure. Of course, there are things we know about ourselves and everyday life. It's okay to say, I don't know about the big questions. Another nice thing that I don't know and I don't mind does is it gives you some privacy. It's a way to protect yourself. Okay, so what is the answer, smart guy? What is the meaning of life? To me, the answer is in the question. You can rewrite it so that it's, I mean to live. Take an interest in living. Watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, reading books, arguing over these concepts isn't really living. You have to stop a minute and be wary of somebody who says they have the answer to everything. Why would they say that? This is the one book you're ever going to need. This is the only YouTube video you're ever going to need to watch. Why would they say that? Because it sells. No one can know everything. Do you want to know how I know that? Because what does it feel like to know everything? Let's do a little thought exercise right now. What if I were to ask you right now, describe to me what the 10th dimension is, or the 11th dimension? I'll wait. How about if tomorrow I challenge you to run a television show with 500 cameras, 250 audio tracks, and you got to know everything? How does that feel, to know everything? Well, it's kind of like at capacity for us, is it not? It's not really worth knowing everything. It doesn't really add anything. It doesn't really add anything to your life. It just makes it more stressful and overwhelming. Taking an interest in living is, I want to hear from an atheist. I want to hear from a religious person. I want to hear from a spiritual person. I want to hear from somebody that says, I'm not quite sure about that, but I think it might kind of be this. Because what is a world that is divided? Well, that's a bird with a broken wing. We can't fly as a humanity if we aren't listening to anybody. Humanity needs everyone to move together, because humans are really good at creating. What do I mean by creating? Well, let's think of it like a painter and how they will take extreme contrasts in black and white, light and dark, and they'll create an image of beauty that is a balance between the extremities. And that is beauty. That is life. Sorry. I don't mean to be emotional. I just don't think people understand how beautiful they can be when they come together, can listen, actively listen, and feel for one another. To lead with your heart is the meaning. To focus on being here Religious people talking about hell and heaven all the time. Atheists saying, oh yeah, we're gonna die and the planet's not gonna be around in a million years. So what? There's nothing to do with living. Oh, and spiritual people too, talking about things that are happening somewhere else. It's a scary idea when you have a bunch of primate species, like we are, running around talking about how we don't really want to be here. And it's not that we don't know right from wrong. It's not that we don't know good from bad. The problem arises when we don't care. And when our egos come into play. When you know how to live your life. You're free of anger, resentment, guilt, the exhaustion of thought. Imagine yourself at the end of your life. What was most important? That you had the capacity to experience life. What were some of the areas that got in the way? All you're left with is the memories. Let's co-create together. Let's discover things together. Because the universe is expanding. It is interested in creating. That's what we are. We are made up of that. That's what you're here for. Every day you get to get up and make decisions. And you get to shift with it. And if you screw up, well, then it becomes something else. We're in this together. Many great artists have come along, like John Lennon or the controversial Michael Jackson. Even you could take the song Louis Armstrong. Think of What a Wonderful World. Think of Imagine. Think of Man in the Mirror. They had no practical way of talking about how we get to that place. There is something to it. I don't think we've been able to come together to find whatever that is yet. That is the meaning. That is. It's that sense of peace. I keep saying that word. I said it in my last video and I'll say it in this one. It's finding that sense of peace. Be able to have clarity, a sense of mental wellness. If you get anything out of this video, just know that you're free. You're free to explore. And the last part that educators always forget, have fun. Enjoy, for God's sakes. Enjoy. Enjoy yourself. I hope this video has helped. That you can see that you can feel empowered and make connection. Find meaning and purpose on your own merits. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more content. And share this video if you believe, or maybe you don't believe, this content is important. Perhaps not perfect, but something in here you think is worth sharing, please do. Until next time, take care.